You're watching Dreadfully Drawn live.
I love nostalgia. There's nothing better than looking back and saying it was better in my day. I was born in 1996, so I'm approaching 29 years old. My first real introduction to football was probably around 2000. I started getting into it properly in 2001, and then I was like fully blown into it in 2002. That was my earliest World Cup. 2002 was when I started playing it properly. So I grew up during what I would call an amazing time in football. You had so many good players, so many good teams, and a lot of the sort of 90s elements of football were still there. And you were coming into the newer era. I mean, some of the players are still playing now from the late 2000s. So I feel like I grew up in a good era. What I love though are actually the things around football that weren't necessarily part of the game, but just made the whole experience of growing up with football even better. And on TikTok, I've been doing a series called Things That Made Sense as a Football Fan in the 2000s. So I thought it would be good to talk about some of them on YouTube as a longer form video, because I loved thinking about it, I love talking about it, and yeah, I just think it was an amazing time to grow. So let's get started. First off, Livestrong wristbands were a thing. I'm going to say 2004. They were a Lance Armstrong initiative just before the whole thing blew up about him being a cheat and all this stuff. For a brief moment in time, everybody was wearing a Livestrong armband. Now, I've never been a fashionable person. I can't say that I've ever really been into fashion. Fashion's never been my thing. But for one moment in my life, I was ahead of the curve. And I was ahead of the curve because of my love of Liverpool, my love of Luis Garcia, and my passion for reading Match magazine. And one day in 2000, I'm going to say 2004, might be, yeah, I think it was 2004, Liverpool signed Xabi Alonso and Luis Garcia on the same day. I haven't got the Match magazine anymore, but there's a picture and I'll put it on screen now. Luis Garcia is wearing a yellow wristband. I wanted my hair like Luis Garcia. I wanted to be Luis Garcia. Like, I was maybe, what would I be, 8 years old at this point. I've got a drawing that I did back in 2004, 2005 time. And as you can see, there is a wristband on his arm. For a brief moment in time, I was the first person in my school to wear one of these because of what I saw in the Match magazine, because of Luis Garcia. So if you grew up around the same time as me and you've seen one of these, no doubt you're the warm one. There were different variations of them, which I'll talk about in a different video because they all have different meanings. But the yellow one was the original. The yellow one was that was the GOAT. That was the one. So yeah, that's my claim to fame in life. That brief period in time where I was slightly ahead of the curve. The next one, it might be an oddly specific one. I don't know whether this is just a UK thing or whether I imagine it happened in other countries as well. But for a brief period of time, and I imagine it stopped somewhere in the late 2000s, there was a rare occasion where the TV got rolled out in class and the doors opened. Football was on. I can only remember this happening maybe once or twice. There was a point around 2002 with the World Cup, and then maybe 2006 where football was on during the day in the UK, and it was on in school. I remember watching the Brazil game in school, I think, and that broke my heart. That genuinely, like, David Seaman getting lobbed, it broke me. I think it was the first real bit of heartbreak that I'd had from a football match. When this TV got rolled out in class, you knew it was a big one because it only got brought out on big occasions, and if it got brought out to watch a football match, it was a big occasion. There's no doubt about it. It was a 2-person operation. You had to get 2 kids out, go and get the TV. No better feeling. Forget about maths. Get the football on. Sit around in a huddle and watch England get beat. The third one, this one causes a debate. You're either FIFA or you're Pro Evo. Now, I was always FIFA, and even nuts say the best football game ever. You just can't you can't debate with that really. But it is hard to deny that Pro Evolution Soccer, for a brief period in time, it was the one. It was like saying that your favourite footballer is David Silva. Like, if you played Pro Evo ahead of FIFA, you knew what you were talking about. That's probably why I played FIFA. I think what added to the charm of it was that they didn't have the license for players, so you ended up just having, I remember Netherlands being Orange 1, Orange 2, Orange 3, but the gameplay was so good. Playing with Adriano at Inter Milan, just the absolute, he was peak football gaming. and it was a great time to play games, to play football games. Still play FIFA or EA or whatever it's called, and it's just not the same. It doesn't hit the same. It's not the same playing with mates who were sat in a different room. There was nothing better than your mate coming around, whoever you played games with, plugging the controller in and spending hours on a football game, whether it be Pro Evo or FIFA. And it's just not the same now. It's just not the same. Saturday mornings as a kid growing up in the 2000s usually consisted of cartoons, and then if you had Sky, although I don't know if it was on Sky One for people who had Freeview, possibly that might have been later on. Soccer AM. Now I'm a bit controversial in the sense that I don't think Soccer AM was quite as good as people remember it being. Soccer AM was fine. It had its moment. It was obviously very silly, and there's a lot of things on it now that you just wouldn't be able to get on TV now. The Soccerettes being one. You still have that in a sense. Like, don't tell me that Soccerettes is any different to what you see on Love Island or like anything like that. Like that sort of thing still exists. But for a brief period of time, Soccer AM did define an era and an age group. Like, I don't know if any other show has for young people who are into football. There was so much on it, and it was so chaotic on a Saturday morning. There were other shows like that were chaotic on a Saturday morning. I think that's just what Saturday mornings were, but it was a great platform for people who liked football, and it was never going to survive in our current day and age. Social media, society's changed, standards have changed, you know, all these things have changed. I don't think people have got the attention span to sit and watch a 3-hour TV show every Saturday morning. Like, people just aren't going to do it anymore, are they? Tim Lovejoy, Helen Chamberlain, Tubes, Fenners, and lastly, and this still goes on, but I don't think any footballer's ever captured young people quite like David Beckham did. David Beckham, in that early period of the 2000s, was just on another level. Everybody, at some point in their childhood, if you were into football, but even people who weren't really into football because it was just the thing to do, styled their hair like David Beckham. Whether it was a mohawk, whether it was the cornrows, whether it was the sort of spiked up front, whether it was the skinhead, everybody at some point had a David Beckham haircut. And I still think it happens. It happens now because I see kids running about looking like Jack Grealish. So it does still happen. And Ronaldo had a moment in the mid 2010s when everyone had that like shaved bit here and then like longer bit on the top here. So it still does happen, and it probably always will happen, because footballers are young, fashionable people, and people who just get into football are impressionable and want to be like the people that they idolise. So this will always happen. But David Beckham was the style icon of the early 2000s. If you can get a group of kids to shave all of the head apart from one little strip down the middle, then you know you are the top dog. Like, that is he was the boy. Personally, I never had the courage. I maybe did a form of the mohawk without shaving the hair, you know, so you just spike up the middle. I was never bold enough to shave my head and keep a little bit in the middle, going all the way down to the back. Like, it just wasn't going to happen. But I was envious of people who had the balls to do it, envious of people who had the guts to do it. But it was just never going to happen to me. So there's the first 5. I've got so many more. I've got a full list of things, of nostalgic things that I remember from being a kid that are all oddly specific. They all relate to football. It really was just the best time. And kids these days just don't know what it was like. Don't know what it was like. If you've got any specific ones that you remember, please do let me know in the comments. Feel free to subscribe for more videos like this. I'm trying to be better with YouTube, you know. I am trying to be better with YouTube. Thank you for watching. I'll be back with another one. Maybe. Goodbye.